So the search for a watch moves into round 2, and it's here we'll find yet another legend and a watch I've desperately wanted to own since I first got to hold one, the Lange Söhne Saxonia Thin. Could it be the one? Looking to buy, sell, or exchange a premium watch? Visit Watchfinder, the pre-owned watch specialist. I know it's annoying me saying, but when you subscribe to the channel, it really makes a difference. 60% of the people viewing aren't subscribed, so if you're one of them, please take the opportunity to click the subscribe button and help make sure the channel continues to be here. Thank you very much. Truth be told, I didn't get a Lange Söhne at first. Not Swiss, not Patek Philippe, very plain looking. Seemed to me like a whole lot of money for not very much. Sure, the more complicated pieces looked a bit better, but any of the base models that I might one day possibly actually be able to afford, I'll be honest and say they looked a bit like those cheap quartz watches they have for sale at the local market for the price of a McDonald's. Boy, was I wrong. In reality, understanding how impressive even the most basic Lange Söhne watch is a bit like trying to explain how fast a 1-litre motorcycle is to someone who owns a Golf GTI. Yeah, your GTI is fast, but this is another universe altogether. It can't be emphasized enough just how wrong I was. Even side by side with the Patek Philippe Calatrava, the Lange Söhne Saxonia is just, well, there's no other way to put this than better. The Patek Philippe is a picture taken on a Canon 5D, rich, beautiful and detailed, but the Saxonia is one shot with a 5DS-R. It's so clear and perfect, it makes your eyes hurt. There's a reason an Lange Söhne watch is so pure and simple. It just doesn't have to be anything else. When you turn that watch over and see the caliber L093.1 for the first time, it hits you. Anything more in the rest of the watch would just feel superficial. It's the Gordon Murray approach to building watches. No silly addenda, just purity of design and a masterpiece of a drivetrain. Trying to explain what I like about this watch feels as daft to me as explaining why the moon landings are impressive, but given that I was on completely the other side of the fence before I saw one, and given that I've been very privileged to see one, I'll do my best to convey some of the feeling I get when I experience this watch. It's quiet. Literally, yes, but I mean more in its execution. Any further than the distance between your wrist and your eyes when you hold it up and it blends into obscurity. You are unlikely to get robbed wearing this watch. At just 5.9mm thick, from most angles it's barely even visible. But when you do bring it closer and start paying attention, it's then the experience becomes rewarding. It's almost like the watch only puts out if you show it some love. The dial is huge for the 40mm size of the watch, given the paper-thin bezel, and its minimal decor seems, at first, boring. But the level of execution in what little is there is so otherworldly, it all cancels out. Extravagance isn't needed when the hands and markers look like liquid mercury poured onto the dial and frozen in place. The absent second hand adds to this illusion, the whole watch giving the impression that its perfection has been held in stasis such that it might never be tarnished. But the movement is what we're all here for, the secret kept in literal darkness for much of its life, for only the hairs on your wrist to enjoy. The caliber L093.1 is about as simple as watchmaking gets. Hand wound, hours and minutes, and that's it. How the German masters pack in 72 hours of power reserve is a mystery for the ages, but it's not like winding it is such a chore anyway when you get to look at this movement. I could tell you about the hand engraving, the striping, the beveling, the rich colours and the screwed chatons, but really what's most impressive about this movement is just how crisp it is. I can't overstate this enough. Looking at an Lange Söhne caliber, even a basic one, It's like that moment you try on your friend's glasses for a laugh and realize your eyesight wasn't as good as you thought it was. Right, hypocrisy time. I said not moments ago that winding this watch isn't a chore because of the beautiful movement, blah blah blah. But I'm pretty sure a Bugatti Chiron owner gets sick of filling it with fuel after a while. Yes, the movement lasts a plentiful 3 days, and yes, the winding action is as smooth as a Barry White chat-up line, but nevertheless, winding a manual watch is a chore. And no, I wouldn't rather have an automatic watch, in the same way I wouldn't swap a manual gearbox for an automatic in a GT3. I'd definitely complain about it in traffic, but I wouldn't swap it. What makes it move from the meh to the spectrum on the daily annoyances chart is the fact that the crown is so small. Proportionally perfect, no doubt, and putting a ship's wheel of a crown on this watch is basically blasphemy, but that doesn't stop the act of winding this tiny little thing any less frustrating. If you've ever tried to roll up a piece of thin paper very tightly, for whatever reason, no judgment here, it's a bit like that, but for ages. At least it reminds you to keep your nails short, because if they grow out even a millimeter, you're kind of stuck. It's a good thing musicians generally don't get paid very much, otherwise there would be a boatload of classical guitarists queuing up outside the Lange Sohne headquarters, complaining in harmony. Which brings me on to my second gripe with this watch, and indeed the whole brand. I can't pronounce it properly, and whenever I do, I sound stupid. I've tried my very best, but I think we've got more chance of getting Arnold Schwarzenegger to sound like David Attenborough. Every time I go to say it, I hesitate, knowing I'm only moments away from sounding like a right Burke. And I don't want to sound like a Burke. It's one of the reasons why I could, were I ever able, never own a Koenig, a Swedish supercar. I wish I could express myself as confidently in German, French, Italian, whatever, in the same way I can English, but I can't. I barely passed basic French in school, and that's only because the teacher was mouthing the answers to me. And I really don't want to be one of those people that defaults to Lange to get around the problem. That's the same as calling a Ferrari a Fezzer or a Lamborghini a Lambo. I don't like it for loud, flashy supercars, so for a quiet, refined brand like Lange Sohne, reducing its name to a couple of basic syllables is worse than calling the Queen Madge. But really, both of those minor quibbles are nothing compared to the very expensive elephant sat in the room, and that's that the Saxonia Thin is very expensive. Now, relatively speaking, it's actually a bit of a bargain. But that's not really going to cut it as sensible, solid reasoning when it comes to negotiating with my business partner, aka my wife. I'm not saying she would forbid me from spending that kind of money on a watch, more if I have to look her in the eye and explain that I think it's a good idea to buy one, I might struggle. The biggest hurdle is, really, persuading myself. Now, budget no concern, this is it. This is the one. It's just perfect. But budget very much is a concern, and this would be all of it and then some. It's such a large amount I haven't even found the courage to mention it here. It's too much. But then, that watch. It's like that over and over in my head, and frankly I don't know what to do about it. Whilst I think, stay tuned and stay subscribed to find out more about the next potential watch I'm considering. In the meantime, let me know what you think about the Saxonia and any other watches you'd recommend in the comments below. Discover more exceptional watches at Watchfinder. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. If there are any watches you'd like to see featured, please let us know in the comments below.